Illuminating white text appears that says, "A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away." Now, curvy golden yellow text stationary in the middle of the screen with stars flying by through hyperspace that reads, "Theory of a Blind Man." Golden yellow text begins to crawl from the bottom of the screen upwards. Episode 2, the live stream strikes back. After the separation of content uploads and live streams, this channel is dedicated to live streaming guests, gaming, proclivities and pondering of the fate of the galaxy. Darth Whistler reigns over these channels and his message will be heard with the help of many others presenting information for all to absorb. The text continues to crawl away from view deep into the infinity of space. For those of you willing to watch and listen to live streaming and participate in the chat, the live stream strikes back at a new upload channel with prizes and galactic credits to make you rebels come rich beyond your wildest dreams. But Darth Whistler is not satisfied until the triad of the Force has been completed, and so there lays another in wait deep in space and will soon be revealed. May the dark side of the Force be with you. As the last of the text disappears, we are left with stars flying by view in hyperspace, then fade to black.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Theory Blind Man and a well overdue We'll See for Work, Blind Toes and In Darkness. Thanks for being in the chat. So go ahead and introduce our newest guest first, Jeanette, from somewhere I have no idea where, doing what I don't know, but we'll discuss that tonight. So Jeanette, welcome.
Thank you.
You want to tell the crowd a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a partially sighted mom with a partially sighted child. I had a 16-year career in human resources, and then unfortunately some not so great circumstances led to me having to leave that job, and now I'm going back to school full-time to pursue a different career. And I spend a lot of my time advocating for the rights of children and their education and their IEPs, and just doing a lot of advocacy work in general.
Nice. Right on, right on. And of course, we got returning guest Jesse Anderson from Illegally Sighted. How you doing?
Hello, I am doing pretty well.
Awesome, awesome. So, as the title says, 2020 wrap up. So we're going to be discussing how the past year was for us, blind, low vision community, searching, acquiring, maintaining employment this past year. So who would like to start? Ladies first.
All right. Okay.
Go for it.
So for me, honestly, I haven't spent a lot of time this year looking for work myself because I have been in school full time. However, I have spent some time assisting other people to look for work and giving some advice to people that are looking for work within the blind and general community at large. Because when you're blind, as with any other issue that you might have that, employers might not look as favorably upon, you really, really have to be better than everyone else. You have to put your best foot forward, and you have to really win those interviews. And it's not always an easy process. So I have spent some time this year doing that.
Nice. And really quick, welcome to the chat, Ability Mom and First Amendment Edie. How about you, Jesse? How was your year?
Well, thankfully, this last year has been quite crazy to say the least in many, many ways. But we made it. We made it.
Yeah, right.
But I thankfully, and I've said this before in some of my other videos and stuff too, that this year I've been working at my current job for, well, now just about 11 years. And I'm really, really thankful that I have a job right now. And not only do I have a job, it was one that when this whole pandemic started, I was able to work from home. I still remember it was like Friday the 13th, March 13th. And they're like, yeah, go ahead and we're going to work from home on Monday. And it was funny because I thought, oh, everyone was thinking, oh, this is going to last, a couple weeks, couple months. And here we are. We're probably working at home until May at least, or June at least. But overall, it's been, so I work at State Services for the Blind, for people unfamiliar, in Minnesota here. And I'm one of the assistive technology specialists. And I work a lot with transition age students, so high school, early college, that kind of thing. And a lot of what I do is I meet with students and sometimes teachers or families and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what we do is look at technology that will help them. The ultimate goal is in our, workforce development unit is employment. So whatever kind of technology or technology training they need, kind of tools as they go off to college or look for employment, that's kind of what I do. So I do a lot of technology assessments, and that has been a little different because usually we like to do that in person because then they can try the technology easier. We can show them devices, that kind of a thing. But having to do everything virtually now, we've had to kind of get creative, and we've tried several different things, and it's still not, perfect. It's still, some things are still just easier, or, you kind of have to do them in person. But as far as like working with people, our team has come up with some pretty good ways to work around it and still do our jobs quite well. And I love working from home.
Nice. And sorry, Blind Toes, I totally didn't know that you're in the chat, but welcome to the chat. Also, Austin says, hey, Jesse. There's including switcher. I need to get rid of one of my cameras for some reason. Get rid of this. Okay, hopefully that worked.
And I totally agree. I totally agree with what you said as well about, like, we have to present ourselves the best. I really like that point. It's like we have to go above and beyond even like what other, sighted individuals would have to for doing the job search, applying for jobs, getting that interview, kind of standing out above and beyond everybody else, because that's definitely been my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a tough world out there, very competitive. And one of the things that I've noticed is that blind people and people with disabilities have a much easier time finding work with communities that serve people with disabilities, because they're already, it's good for PR for them to hire people with disabilities. And it's just, they're more empathetic to that. However, when you go out into the basic kind of normal sector, it's much more difficult, and you have to know how to really go in there and not just sell yourself, but sell why the company would benefit from hiring you.
Absolutely.
Because it's just, otherwise you're not giving them a reason to choose you over the other person that they feel they don't have to make reasonable accommodations for and go through the interactive process and all of those kinds of things. I found one of the great tools that people can go prepared with is the knowledge about where they can get the assistive technology, because companies get a little overwhelmed with, we have to provide assistive technology for you. And if the dollar amount is too high, then they can basically claim it as too much of a hardship. So with assistive technology, knowing that the Department of Rehab is there to help, being ready to have those discussions. And I think there's two schools of thought. There's the school of thought that you don't have to tell people about your disability in the interview process, and certainly you do not. But if you don't, and you don't come prepared to explain how that is not going to hold you back from achieving all of the goals that, that company has set forth, then you're going to find when you get closer to that interview date and you haven't disclosed that and you haven't had those conversations, it's going to be a little tougher, at that point moving forward to do that.
Totally
Jesse's brought that up
agree.
before too. Yeah, for sure.
And
I think we're on the same page as far as like, you know what, you either say it right up front and get it out there, but you can also, like Jesse mentioned last time, taking a laptop or something with you and literally prove what you can do. Otherwise, when you go in there, you may face what's the word I'm looking for? Resistance, I guess, because they already have in the back of the mind that, oh, you're blind, you're disabled, we got to give you special accommodations or whatever, and you end up working 20 times as hard instead of 10 times as hard. So right,
and that's actually what I was just going to bring up too, is just kind of, saying that for this particular episode is that, taking equipment that you're familiar with, just have a few tasks in mind, not even the equipment itself, but like, if you kind of think that the employer has some potential concerns or seems hesitant, it's like, oh, hey, here's my smartphone that I use. Here's my laptop that I have with me. A lot of this is going to be navigating and looking for things on the internet. Fine. I'll show you that I can do this. And I can also stress, know your assistive technology, know it, because when you prove to them that you are not only competent with it, but you can do things just as fast, if not faster, that can go a long way.
Absolutely. Also, welcome, Danny. Welcome to the chat. Ed brings up a good point, which is something I was going to bring up, is that a lot of the workforce will continue to work from home this year. And I think that's a good point because, people are used to working from home now. It's like, oh, wow, I don't have to get dressed up for work.
Heck
I
yeah.
can sleep in an extra half hour.
Heck yeah.
I think working from home that will be the new norm.
I'm not going to lie. It's pretty awesome. And, working for the government myself, like a state job. And that's the thing is, especially some of the larger businesses, governments, those types of things, they're really kind of, set in their ways, and they kind of have to be proven that like, oh, well, we just because we've done this this way for the last 20, 30, 40 years doesn't mean, like, okay, now we can change. But now that we've had to prove that people can work from home and that the job still can get done, I think hopefully I'm really hoping that we're going to be able to see just more flexibility in work schedules, work location, all of that kind of a thing. Because one of the things that I saw on Twitter quite a bit over the last several months is just the fact that, not just people who are blind, but just people with disabilities in general, they're, just frustrated, and understandably so, that, hey, we've been lobbying for, maybe I can't get transportation, maybe I can't, yes, we should be able to go out and work in a public job just like anybody else can. But for those who can't, for whatever reason, transportation or other reason, those people were always told, well, no, this job has to be done in person. This is what it is. And if you can't do it, you can't do it. But then all of a sudden, now that sighted people can't work or non-disabled people can't,
all of a sudden all the doors open.
But now it's like, oh, now it's okay to work from home because it inconveniences us.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get that side too.
Austin asks, and I'm going to ask this just once, and Austin, if you refrain from non-related topics for this particular show, that'd be appreciated. But Austin asks, Jesse, have you ever heard of ScanSoft Tom?
I think it used to be something else, but Yeah, synthesizer voice. It's like Samantha and Tom, the voices you get on iOS, or there's JAWS versions of it, like Real Speak, I think.
Gotcha. Welcome to the chat, Standing. How are you doing? She says, Happy New Year's to all. Oh, Streamlabs. Blessings. I think, excuse me. Ed asks, or says, I think I don't know what that word is. I think probably it's also a plus for business because of less overhead on office space. Yeah, I mean, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
That is true.
It is. And actually, prior to COVID, when I was doing a lot of work in HR, telecommuting was sort of on the rise already.
Mm-hmm.
It was starting to be something that companies were talking about more and more for individuals. And one of the things that I like to point out to people is when you're applying for a job, the part of the job description that says the essential functions or the essential criteria, those are the things that are supposed to be only specific to that job, and that there isn't another employee, like, someone at a front desk or someone else that could do that job.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, one of the things that they try to put under the essential functions of the job is that someone needs to have a valid driver's license and the ability to get to and from work using their own vehicle, when in fact, for many, many employment positions, driving is not required, and therefore they cannot actually put that in the essential functions part of the job description.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
it's important to know too, when you're looking at your job description, what are the essential functions for that job, because that's going to be what's required of the individual and can't be done by anybody else. So sometimes you kind of have to call companies out on those things a little bit too.
I think they're just basically trying to make sure that you're going to get to work.
Well, yeah, I totally
Actually, they used
agree.
to say that. Remember when it used to say reliable? Do you have reliable transportation?
Right? Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be applying for the job if I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Right.
and that's the other thing. You make a really good point about the essential job duties, because like in my job, all of my essential job duties are working with the customers, working with the technology, doing all of that kind of stuff. And for part of my job, yes, I do have to travel throughout the state, but especially if you're looking at a job with a larger business or government or organization, whatever it happens to be, you could look at things like carpooling, or even having a hired driver through the business. Like there are several of us who work at my agency who are blind or visually impaired, and we have a pool of drivers that we would work with prior to the whole COVID stuff. And yeah, I mean, I would travel all around the state, and so driving was not part of my, it was not an essential job duty. It was the doing the actual work that was my essential duties, and so I could have someone, drive and do those types of things if I needed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
See, Danny had something in the chat. Oh, I didn't even think about that, actually. Stupid me. Danny says it would be less overhead in some areas, but then you have to worry about like IT, VPNs, and networking.
Yeah, especially it depends how much the company has in place before they really started supporting telecommuting. Like for my job, it was pretty much just like, oh, we're working from home now. Okay, I already had a work cell phone. I already had a work laptop. I did have to get set up with a VPN because I typically didn't use it because it didn't really work from home before this.
Mm-hmm.
And if I did, I could do the couple really quick little things just through a web browser, so it was okay. But through some of the stuff we do, but I mean, it was literally like, okay, starting up on Monday, we're good.
Yeah.
But other companies might not have that luxury of having everything set up.
Yeah, that is an area that would have been difficult in the job that I was in, because for like the finance director and me, the HR director, so many things are all within the organizational computers and stuff, and they didn't always have a way for you to access that from home. They had to spend more money and put up more firewalls and, sometimes do upgrades to the computer systems to be able to do that. And using like HRIS platforms and softwares, there's a lot of privacy and security with some of that stuff. And companies aren't always really willing to put the effort in. But now that companies have had to do that, it's sort of done. I've talked to some people that were working for companies like space, like what are they? Like engineering companies and stuff, where they weren't able to work from home, and it was a big issue. But once the pandemic started, they had to. So those companies built in those things, and they spent that money to make it secure for their employees to work from home. So now those companies have that security and a lot of those things in place. And I think we're not going to see as much of this problem that we had prior to COVID, with being able to do that.
Yeah.
It really mainly depends on you have the technology, but it depends on what sorts of technology a business uses. I know a lot of the people that we work with, some of our clients and stuff, the customer service type of jobs are very popular, and a lot of those do tend to use some proprietary, a lot of it's going more website now, but a lot of them will use like custom dialer software or other weird things that really do not play well with screen readers. So those types of jobs can be really interesting, if not troublesome, from time to time, trying to get those. But ideally, yeah.
I was hoping Jason would join me.
I did run into that a lot with the human resource management softwares are web-based, in that the links at the top and the bottom of the page you could get to, but whatever the overlays were that they were using for all the fill-in type forms, none of that was accessible to screen readers. So if you couldn't use magnification, you couldn't do it.
Jason, who's going to join us, I wanted him to talk a little bit about this for the system that he uses, which is basically a government contract through some other state that they take calls for and cases for, but the software that they use is totally accessible, and I wanted him to talk about that. So, I mean, there are some systems out there that are available.
Oh yeah, there definitely are. We've worked with a lot of people who have been into those jobs, but they can just be a little bit trickier, especially if you rely exclusively on speech.
Yeah. Hey, Danny Mac, how are you doing? Go to the chat really quick. Yeah, Danny.
But I do
tends to show up.
Go ahead.
No, that's it. Go ahead.
But one thing I do have to kind of mention is, like I said, it's been an interesting learning process. Like, I do things online constantly and have done for years, but like this year with, actually doing meetings and appointments with like students and clients and things like that was really kind of an interesting learning experience. I've learned more about voice over IP software, all kinds of different ones in the last like 9 months than I have for quite a while. I mean, I've used everything for, not just for my day job, but some of the work that I do just kind of on the side. I've used anything from Zoom to Slack, or even my friends will use Discord, or all kinds of Teams, Google Meet. And what's really nice is that with the technology that we have, it is really kind of easy to share. We can share the screens with each other, and if the software supports sharing audio as well, I mean, it's really nice, because if I want to do an assessment with somebody, show them what magnification tools look like and how they work, or showing them speech, or being able to mirror my phone or tablet to my computer, showing some of the apps and things like that. So I've really started making, pretty heavy use of Zoom and its screen sharing features, which works very well.
Isn't it kind of interesting how before the beer virus, working from home, like online specifically, didn't seem as real or professional as it does now?
Yeah.
Like
So
nothing
true.
really has changed except the fact that we can't go to work.
Oh yeah, no, it's a full, like I was saying earlier, it's like a full attitude change because
Mm-hmm.
necessity basically forced people to do this. And like I said, you have all these businesses of like, well, we're paying for this office space, and like I said, we're in tradition, and these are office jobs. You have to be here from 8 to 4, 9 to 5, and it's like working means you sit your butt in that chair for those hours, and that's
Yeah.
where you're doing it. But now it's like I can get just as much work done working from home in a lot of
Less
cases.
time too.
Oh yeah, let me tell you, the work uniform and the commute is way better. Like
Yeah.
you said, it's great.
Mhm. I think, and we've learned how to adapt our demeanors and the way we do things for a home environment to still be professional and, fit within that professional environment, even from a relaxed setting, from like some of the touch up abilities and backgrounds you can throw in, to reduce clutter, whatever. There's just so many features now that
Yeah.
have been proved to make that easier.
Oh yeah, even I mean, 10 years ago, like if this whole pandemic wouldn't have, if it would have happened even 10 years ago, we probably could have done it, kind of, sort of. But I think we would have had a lot more trouble because there wasn't near as many options, especially near as many free and low cost options. Both with just mainstream technology that everybody has access to, and then what's really nice is, being blind or visually impaired, there are so many free options. Every platform has built-in magnification, built-in screen reader,
Mm-hmm.
right now. So, even if you're on Windows, you can use NVDA. If you're on a Mac, you've got VoiceOver and Zoom. Your mobile, iOS and Android, you have all these apps that can help you read print
Yeah.
and all those things.
So, what do you two think about this coming year as far as people with disabilities maybe possibly getting hired more because of the realization that working from home is probably going to be the normal workforce?
Well, you know what I think? I think there is going to be a benefit, especially for companies that are going to be moving forward, doing a lot more work from home. For one, the interview from the for myself personally, I have a gait issue, so I might look like I don't know what I'm doing if I stumble into a building and run into something on my way. And, I'm trying to get to
Mhm.
the boardroom and sit down. There's so many things that can happen from the door to the boardroom or wherever you're getting your interview,
Mm-hmm.
um, that maybe make them take a second look at you and think, what is going on? But from home, a lot of interviews are being conducted from home now.
Yep.
We're in our environment. We can be more confident, more relaxed. Our technology is all at hand. So I think, if nothing else, the interview process can be a little better. We have time to get to know our employee and show what we can do, even if we're going to transition into the workplace later. I
Mhm.
think that there's a lot of ways we can use this situation right now to get an edge on getting into the workplace.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I guess I didn't even think of some of that, but yeah, no, that's actually a really, really good point, and I hope really people do take advantage of that. Especially, okay, we've been stuck in our homes for how many months now, and just being able to, hey, let's use that time to learn our, whether it's learn our technology or learn some other skill that we can, use toward, hey, I'm going to be looking for a job in the future. Let's use this time that we have at home to, get better, or learn or everything. As far as like how I think things are going to go, I think that, like you said, I think it's going to be ultimately in the long run. I think businesses hopefully will be a little bit more flexible, and we will be able to get more both in person and work from home, or jobs that were part in the office, part at home, those types of jobs more often. But I think in the short term, I think it's still going to be in a way a little bit harder, just because so many people, especially if they have had small businesses or things like that themselves, so many people have lost their jobs and are struggling to survive,
Yeah.
that the job market is going to be extremely competitive for the near future. And that's again where bringing it back to what you said in the beginning, where we have to basically give 120% above above everyone else, because it's going to be extremely competitive
Yes.
while we're trying to get that unemployment rate down again.
Well, also a thing to consider is that a lot of nonprofit businesses have not survived this. So there are
Hmm.
going to be less of those agencies that normally would be working with individuals like us able to even hire because they're not in existence anymore. So it's going to have, a problem in that area too.
Yeah, good, very good point.
In Darkness says, "Damn good stream today." Thank you, In Darkness. So for the two of you, Jesse, you're pretty much already working from home anyway,
Mhm.
as am I. Jeanette, how about you? What do you see yourself doing in the near future?
You know, I am glad to not be working right now and to not have to work. Although I am getting a master's degree and then I will be returning to work.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even before that, because I already work a lot. My name's getting out there a little bit more with the school districts, and I may find myself considering independent contracting at some
Mm,
point, doing consulting, some things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
cool.
just because I like to really keep busy. I don't like to not be very active in the community, and school by itself just isn't enough for me. And I'm involved with some board of directors for some blindness agencies and stuff like that. So I do see myself doing some work in the future, but mostly because I want to and not because I have to yet.
Mm-hmm.
Once I get my master's degree, then I'll probably go into private practice,
Hmm.
working in therapy primarily with people that have gone through some major life changes. I want to focus a lot of my therapy on people that are newly disabled, newly blind, or have had a major life illness, or, are just having a crossroads in their life where they need to readjust and move forward in a different direction, probably even maybe do some life coaching of some kind. I'm not 100% sure yet.
Okay.
So yeah, you kind of answered my question, but I guess you're going into like a kind of a counseling master's or something like that.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Have you? I mean, I did my master's exclusively online while I was working several years ago. Have you found that experience to be pretty accessible too? I know that depending on the tools that different classes used, like the tools themselves generally were pretty good. It's that usually what I found, it was the content that instructors put into them that was the bad part, because you go to the website and that's fine, but then instructors love their image-based PDF files.
Yes, and you know what I'm going to tell you that I have learned my second time back in college is that colleges are not very prepared for upper division students that are blind.
Right.
They just are not equipped for it. I had to take a statistics class 3 times from three different institutions to be able to get
Oh,
one that was accessible, because the online platforms in statistics are not good because it's image based, or you have to be able to use the little clip feature on Word to
right.
clip out the part of the formula you're working on. And just, it
Oh, the
was
Canvas
really, really
system.
crazy to try to do that online. But
Yeah,
I
I
found,
I could
okay.
do most classes I think pretty well virtually, but math and science and like the statistics class, I had to take algebra, physics, and statistics in my undergrad, and I would not have wanted to do those in person because there's so much. I mean, Excel became my best friend because if you learned how to do the formulas and put your numbers,
Mhm.
that saved my life, man.
Yeah.
I learned more about Excel during that semester I took stats than I already forgot all of it, but boy, it helped.
Well, the thing that I found to be the most helpful is I took my stats class in person, but
Hmm.
I took it with a teacher that made you do statistics by hand. No
Oh,
calculators, everything was worked out by hand. And I do have some vision. So, I mean, that saves me because I could use a CCTV and get through it.
right.
Um, but means that you weren't having to do all of the excessive work with a scientific calculator. And there are accessible scientific calculators, but let me
Mm-hmm.
tell you,
Hmm.
I don't. I would take a whole semester just to try to figure out how to use the dang thing. Like, it's just, it's not my friend.
Yeah,
So
some of them are not very good. Like I said, I wouldn't call it cheating, but like I said, once I figured out like how to do like the statistics formulas in
right,
there, I would create like cell references and I would actually design the I would make a file that was the equation for that particular type of problem, and then I would do one of them, and then if I had to do 10, 12 more of them, then I would just plug in the original numbers and then it would just calculate it for me. I'm like, yeah. That's the way I got through that class.
you
So
know,
just
that's a
hold on a
great
second.
way to do it. But I'll tell you, one of the biggest issues with statistics is pulling the data from wherever you're getting your data from. So if you have a data set that's really, really large,
Oh
pulling
yeah.
that data from a screen reader into your statistical software or however you're doing it, and making sure you don't miss anything and you're doing degrees
Oh
of
yeah.
freedom and just stuff. It's so many numbers, it's so easy to get lost, but
Oh yeah,
it's
no, trust me.
absolutely doable. It's so
It is
doable.
doable, but it sucks. I mean, I remember
Yeah,
before the
it
end of
is.
the semester, I think I was like, I was using one Excel sheet for one of these types of problems, and literally you started out with like three numbers, and by the end you had to do like 10 different equations to get to the end of the main equation. And so
Yes.
it was cell references upon cell references upon cell
Yes.
references. That would do this cell, that would do that cell. And yeah, I got it wrong a few times, so it took a while to build those.
Yeah.
Jason
It was
Yeah.
just
tricky.
popped in the chat and said he's unable to sign in, so that's why he's not here.
Oh.
Danny's first two stat classes were in person. First one required most of the work to be done on the website or a website.
Yeah. A lot of them
Second
do.
stats was for
The
science.
more to me,
And
like especially in college, the more you can do, again, kind of going back to like knowing how to advocate for yourself and also knowing a variety of different tools, not just your screen reader, let's say, but my professor gave me an inaccessible document. Well, I could sit there and wait and have it brought to disability services, but now we have so many tools out there. I can take out my phone and have my headphones in and pull out, Seeing AI or Voice Dream Scanner, and boom, I
yeah,
can take a picture and OCR that paper and not fall behind. So the more you can kind of do independently, there of course are going to be times where you do need some kind of a document translated or some kind of assistance, but the more you can do independently, the more it's going to save your butt in the long run.
Yeah, and actually, I got a little off track with the stats thing, but when you were asking the question, one thing I can recommend, when you're working with your disability services department at whatever college or institution, one of the things that transitional students need to really be aware of, and I think it starts with a conversation with the families and the students together, is that in high school, the TVIs and the support network, they work through all those things. They get the documents that you need. They make sure things are ready because it's all worked into the IEP, and that's their job.
Amen. I know where you're going with this.
However, if you don't adapt those skills of how to know what you need, how to get it, and sometimes, a lot of times, you're telling them how they need to get what you need. They don't necessarily know. So you've got to start learning at a really, really young age. How are these things being acquired when you're in school? And when I go to an institution, how do I make sure that I can acquire them, even if the people, especially working with upper division classes, a lot of the times, the DSPS departments don't always even know how to get you what you need, or they flat out don't even know what you're talking about. So you really have to know that going into college. Yeah, it's not done for you. You do it all yourself.
It's all on you. Disability Services is there to help, but it's like, it's kind of like the professors will say, it's like, you're paying us for school, and we're going to be here to teach the class or not. So whether you pass or fail, that's totally up to you. If you need help, come ask. We'll be able to help you. But that's kind of it's a totally different mindset than it is in high school. And you kind of just opened up a different can of worms. Like I said, I was sort of thinking of in high school, comparing high school to college. One of the things that I typically run into, well, not typically, but a lot of times can run into when working with some high school students, and it's not the fault of the high school student, it's they don't know what they don't know. But like a lot of even I run into sophomores, juniors, even seniors who have really no or very little to no experience with assistive technology, and they're going to go on to college, and some of them don't even really use a computer. They might use they might just use an iPad, or they just might they were stuck with like a braille note taker, and they're just going to be like, oh, this is all you need. Oh, no, it isn't. So having, knowing those mainstream, how to use a computer and things is just, you're going to flounder without it nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. And your schools are going to have some accessible things because they're required to, but sometimes you have to work really hard to get access to them. Computer labs don't always have computers you need. So, knowing how to initiate Windows built-in navigate or narrator when you need to, or knowing those workarounds yourself, putting NVDA onto a thumb drive so you can take it with you. Just those kinds of little tricks will help. And like you said,
Right.
Voice Stream Scanner, Voice Stream Reader, I'm telling you, Voice Stream Scanner is so worth the price.
Amen.
It is incredible.
Yeah, did you get those yet, Whistler? Did you get those yet?
Get what?
Voice Stream?
Not yet.
Oh, you gotta get it, dude. They're so good.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Well, and it's interesting because like I said, the interesting part is a lot of students don't actually. I totally agree that it's crucial to do and kind of know those things. But a lot of people, they just haven't even heard of I didn't know that Windows had magnifier. I didn't know that it had narrator, or that what is this NVDA? I've heard of JAWS. I might have heard of Zoom Text. But they haven't heard of, even like vision teachers haven't heard of this stuff, which is really scary. But
yes,
that's, we'll leave it at that because that kind of befuddles me.
Yeah, I almost think there need to be transitional programs, which there are, that focus on prior to graduating from high school, if they could build in programs that teach some of those skills. However, they have to have the ability to understand what those skills are to be able to do that. And so many TVIs are lacking in so many areas.
Welcome to the chat, Greg.
Yep.
How do I sound now, guys? There was some advice in the chat that I was quiet for some reason. I don't know why. So I turned you guys down.
Okay. Yeah, no, you sound good.
They're talking about, can't imagine not learning a computer in school or like high school or whatever. And Leah says, me knowing a computer before losing my sight has really helped out. I agree too. Like I pretty much grew up on a computer.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm noticing? They're pushing Braille so much in schools right now, which I absolutely agree with. However, I have seen that they have pulled back with touch typing because they feel like if you can use a Braille note taker, then touch typing isn't so much important. And if you can't put your hands on a keyboard and use it, it's going to cause problems too. So I think that that's one of those things that is really important, that blind individuals need to know how to touch type and they need to know how to do Braille as well.
Couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I mean, having like, even if you have low vision, I always maintain that you need to have some physical way to be able to read, whether it's at a decent speed with your low vision or being able to read in Braille so that you can know how words are spelled and you learn those types of things like syntax and everything. And touch typing, you go to an employer, you go to a friend's house, you go to a computer lab, you go to a library, wherever, just being able to know like, oh, I know how to type on a QWERTY keyboard. I mean, and like I said, to me, now there's no excuse because, before, even 10 years ago, a lot of this stuff was still behind a paywall. Now you have the Talking Typer app for iOS. You have the free Typer online website that you can do. You have, various typing software for PC. I think there's one for Mac. Yep. But yeah, I mean, so much of this stuff is like, people could claim before that, well, we can't do this because we can't afford it, so we can't teach them.
Yeah, there's no reason anymore for anybody to not know.
Now you can't say that at all.
Yep.
Absolutely. It won't stop them from doing it. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I know.
And it might not be the paywall. It's just in terms of TVIs and instruction through K-12, it's more that they're stretched so thin that they don't have the time to dedicate to keeping on top of these things, and they don't know it exists, therefore they can't offer it to their students. And if you don't have a family member that's already blind that can advocate, the parents are expecting them to be the ones that know everything, and oftentimes they know very little because they know only what they do on the daily and not the outside of the box kind of stuff.
And a lot of their main goal is, we're just trying to get you through the classes you're taking now. We're not, in my position, we're looking at it more like, hey, this is your long-term employment goal. This isn't how do we get you through tomorrow's history test.
Right. First Amendment Ed says that talking typer or talking teacher typer saved my life.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to start my son on that.
Yep, keyboarding is one of the best skills I learned. For sure.
It's a program, Danny.
Yep, there's a few of them. There's like Talking Typing Teacher, there's Talking Typer, and then there's a free web-based version of that they just came out with earlier this summer. Yeah. It's called Typer Online, and you can load whatever screen reader and just go to that website and get your typing lessons. It's pretty cool.
Yep. So is there something specifically you wanted to bring up, Jeanette? When I talked
Well,
about this show, you said because you had a friend or something that was going to watch or may benefit from something. I can't remember what it was.
Well, yeah, I was hoping. I don't know if he's here or not, but you know what I can do just to give people an idea. If you guys would like me to talk about how to make a position like what I was doing accessible, because I was in upper management, actually C-suite, because I was the HR director. And a lot of times it can be really tricky when you're dealing with filing systems, payroll systems. Like you have to get really, really a lot of tools in your belt, things to consider when you're thinking of privacy with HR, payroll, and things like that. You've got to take advantage of using Bluetooth headphones. I used a Braille labeler called a 6-dot to label all of like client files, so I could touch them in Braille, pull them out, and then put them under a machine, or even use like I didn't have the scanning program when I was working, but boy, I wish I had it, because seeing AI just wasn't good enough at the time. But there are just so many ways if you use all the tools, use your iPhone. And let me tell you too, if you're running across the problem, which I did in my employment, where people say you are on your phone too much at work, you have to definitely know how to have that conversation and make sure that your employer is aware of how much assistive technology you actually use on your phone. Because a lot of people will pass by and they'll see you're on your phone. Your phone's in your hand all the time. And
Good point.
And what people don't always understand is that is your tool to be successful at your job. So making sure that these things are in writing when you sit down and have the interactive conversations with your employer. You need to make sure that your employer knows what types of assistive technology you're using, so that nobody can come to you later and say, well, you didn't tell us, and employees think it looks, like you're not doing your job or whatever. And that has come up so many times for people that I know, and it came up for me as well. That you just need to make sure you're having those conversations ahead of time and make sure that they know.
Yep.
That's a really good point I didn't even think about. But yeah, especially with like the phone use thing, I haven't run into that personally myself, because people kind of get it and they see all the different like apps we're using to, whether it's reading or converting something or whatever it happens to be, any number of things. But like one thing that we did run into is that before, we would recommend for technology assessments, we would find, people would do several totally different devices. You would get, the $600 or the several $100 portable CCTV, and then you might get a book player, and then you might get a money reader. You might get, you have all these different tools. And then once people wanted to start using, say, like an iPod Touch or an iPad or even an iPhone, we had resistance from management to say, hey, we're not a phone company. You can't be recommending phones to people. And we basically got it overturned. We kind of got management to see it. We're like, no, actually, we don't provide any data plan or anything. That's totally on them. But rather than paying, several $1,000s for a lot of these separate devices, we're essentially helping them with like a portable computer, because that's essentially what it is. You've got your book player, you got a digital recorder, you got calculators, you've got note taking, OCR. I mean, I could go on. And
Yes.
that's just...
Yeah, it's eliminated so much unnecessary bulk. I remember I was going to school, had the guide dog, had the Braille note, a laptop, the phone, slate and stylus just in case. It was just so much. Now
Yeah,
slate and stylus. That's all you need.
like I said, I'm old. There wasn't even an iPhone when I was in college. It was laptop, baby. That's what I had. And it was great, but But yeah, man, if I would have had half the stuff we do now, man, it would have been even just so much easier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of times I found myself, I'm sure you guys know anybody who's worked with JAWS. JAWS isn't always real friendly when you've got a lot of different applications up. And in
Mhm.
HR, with a lot of things, you're using web-based stuff, email, Word, Excel, like all the things. I found myself using my phone a lot of the time for all of my web-based work. So if there was anything web-based that I had to do, that was done on my phone. So I ultimately had like two computers going. I had my office
Mhm.
computer, which I was doing the Word and Excel, those things that I had to do on a computer, and then the phone was taking over the functions of the web-based functions that I was having to
Mhm.
do, and it
And
helps save a lot of time in crashes and stuff
oh
like that.
yeah, and like just using just general office software, and not even some of the more advanced techie stuff that I have to work with, but like even just regular office work, and like you said, different web pages and things. If you are a screen reader user, if the primary way that you use your computer is a screen reader, and maybe you are familiar with JAWS, and that's fine, that's totally good. But I would maintain that you can't just like, especially if you're gonna get a job where you're going to be working with computers for a significant portion of your job. I would argue that I think learning one screen reader these days kind of isn't enough. Like, if you can bring to the table, hey, I can use two or three of them. I can use JAWS, I can use NVDA, and I can use narrator. So if I get into a pinch and my computer goes completely belly up, maybe I've got a chance
Yep.
to get into narrator and figure out what's going on. Or, depending on the website that I'm looking at, I'll switch between like, well, on my home computer, I don't have JAWS on there, but I have System Access, NVDA, and Narrator, and I will switch
Oh,
between all three of them depending on what website or what tool I'm using, because they just work better in different cases.
system access is still around.
It is. They're not really updating it anymore. I haven't been using it as much lately, but because I have, I've owned it for several years, and so I just already own it, and so
No.
yeah, I still have it on my computer, and in a lot of ways, I love the way it does the internet. I love the way it. There's
Don't you have to
something
pay for
that.
the yearly thing, yearly subscription for that though?
No, the screen reader was not. No, that's their little network thing. No, the screen reader portion, you just buy that outright, or
Mm-hmm.
you could just buy it outright. And I owned it probably 12, 13 years ago.
Wow.
So I've just always had access to it. I think at the time it was like $300 instead of Jaws being like 1,200. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll get this, and
Yeah.
work great.
I've never even heard of it, so
Oh, it
nifty.
was more intended for the more basic user back then. Um,
Well, the network was, but the actual screen reader itself is pretty, I would say, fairly similar to like the keyboard layout is pretty much like JAWS and NVDA. You
mhm.
can learn it in like no time. Like, if you've heard of SA2Go, that's a really
Yep.
cool service that I think still works.
Hmm.
I haven't used it in a while, because you can go to www.satogo.com, and basically it's a web version of their screen reader that you can use for free. And back before NVDA became really more robust, that was the tool that I would use if I was working on somebody else's machine that didn't have assistive technology. As long as it was connected to the internet, I could just make, okay, I'm on the internet, hit Windows R, type in that website address, and it would
Yep.
just come up and it would talk me through getting it going, and boom, I had a screen reader.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see the merit in that.
Well, we're coming up on an hour, lady and fella. Any last parting words before we get out of here? And any questions in the chat? Make sure you throw them up there now.
Yeah, open to any questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if I said it, but Blind Guy shows in the chat as well. Welcome.
I would just say, for those of you who are going to be taking on the challenge of looking for work, it's really important to remember that having the discussion with your employer and showing what you can do, like we discussed before, for anyone who's not been here in the beginning, is, I think, the better way to go than I'm not going to tell them about my disability because I'm not required to do so, which a lot of people prefer to go that route. But I think being honest and upfront and expressing what you can do, despite whatever your limitations are, is really important. And I don't know, it's all about fake it till you make it in so many ways. I mean, until you get in there and see what the workload is, you just don't know what you're going to need, or even if it's going to be something you can do. Just like with any employee, the first 90 days are meant to make the most of your time there, get as much learning as you can, have those conversations with your employer, because you never ever want to lose your job because you didn't communicate because you were afraid to. You just have to make sure that you know how to have those discussions in a way that is going to promote your continued work.
Yep. For sure.
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot that I could add to that. The only other thing that I would probably say is that I think maybe what a lot of people don't realize, especially first-time job seekers, especially if you're like, okay, you're out of college now, you're transitioning to employment, or you're out of high school, you're looking for that job that will hopefully ultimately become your career, that looking for that type of job, even an entry-level job, the job search itself is in itself a full-time job, unless you are extremely lucky. And if you are, I'm so jealous of you. Like I said, the job search itself, when I was looking for work, I kind of treated it like a 8-hour a day job. I had like Excel sheets of like the employers that I would contact and what their status was to keep track of it all. I had different cover letters, different resumes. I had, it's, unless, like I said, unless you're extremely lucky, the job search is a daunting task in itself.
Oh yeah, I agree.
If you guys
looks like there's no questions, but everybody is saying great stream, everybody, and they really appreciate it. So thanks everybody for being here.
Sure. Yeah, really thank you.
And,
thank you. You bet.
I mean, obviously, we can always do more of these when some more issues or topics come up. Same guests, different guests. But if you want to join, you got to email me, whistler@theoryofblindman.com. Don't forget to share this one. It was a good one. I enjoyed this one, like the others. And it'll also be in the playlist, so you can go back and watch all the other episodes. And Jesse seems to be a fixture here, so maybe I'll make him a co-host one day.
There you go.
Jesse,
I guess I found that I like to, I enjoy this podcasting stuff. So yeah, if you ever need help, whatever, let me know.
It is absolutely fun. And Jeanette, thank you for being here. Much appreciated.
Sure.
And so until next time, everybody. Wait, there's something that just came in. Oh, hey, Willie. You're just a little late. But have no fear, it's just ending, so you won't miss much by rewinding the whole thing and starting over. But it's all good. Thank you for being here, Willie. And everybody else, I'm going to try to remember Blind Toes, In Darkness, Standing in the Wind, Danny, which one came first? I don't know. Danny Marie, Ability Mom 2 vlogs, Blind Jedi vlogs, Danny Mac, First Amendment Ed, Austin, I think I scared him away though, and Willie, thanks for being here. So until next time, remember, love is blind. Keep it blind.